You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hello, everyone. Michael Renfro here. I'm the host of 15 Minutes, Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch lawyers and law firms about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, where we deliver tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI possible, your firm does need to have the better website and the better content. At Gladiator, we use artificial intelligence combined with machine learning, as well as now over a century and a quarter of a century of experience dedicated to specifically law firms to outperform that competition. To learn more, please go to Gladiator Law Marketing. That is gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Today we have Greg Marks with us. I know it may say James on the screen here, but just know that his name and what he goes by is Greg. Greg, why don't you start off by telling us where in the world are you and what practice area do you focus on most?
Sure. I office in Dallas, Texas, and I am a personal injury trial attorney that kind of focuses more on automotive product liability cases, but I do a whole host of other personal injury cases as well.
But the focus that has come about over the years has kind of ended up being towards the product liability more within, like you said, the automobile industry.
Yeah. I have an engineering background. My undergrad was in engineering. I went to work as an engineer before I went to law school, and so the automotive product liability kind of fits with my background.
You saw a lot of that going on before you ever became an attorney. The liability, right? The side of it where you're like, yeah, okay, risk versus cost. We're really going to do this? Okay. Yeah, we've all heard the stories and we all understand. I mean, the world that we live in, yeah, we all die, but we all die. So when you're looking at risk, you have to look at the fact that all of these people at some point are going to die. And I'm not trying to sound like a cynic, but it is the reality. And when you're actually looking at a business, and I get why there has to be this, you have to look at the assessment of what all it is. I wish that it wasn't that way, but unfortunately, $100,000 will outweigh a human life when it comes to risk assessment. So
yeah,
just the super silliness of it, if you will. So I heard a little bit. How did you get started in the personal injury realm and get this practice going? Because I got that you were the engineer that you were, but how did it transpire that you became an attorney?
So my dad was an attorney, and he was kind of a jack of all trades. Did criminal defense, divorces, family law, general practice. He did a general practice, and my mother had worked for him as a paralegal and that kind of thing. And she always wanted me to go to law school. She wanted I have two other brothers. So my dad had three sons, and she wanted one of the sons to be a lawyer. And so I got chosen. She put the pressure on me. And it actually, it kind of fit because, as an engineer, I solved problems, but those problems were quantitative problems. Right. And as a lawyer, I still solve problems, but they're more of a qualitative problem than a quantitative problem. So it's this, I enjoy doing it. I'm glad she kind of focused me in on it. So, the funny thing is, when I graduated law school, I started out at an insurance defense firm doing insurance defense, and which was, by the way, I would recommend that to anybody that's interested in doing plaintiff's work. Start out doing insurance defense work because it gives you just so much experience,
right?
And it gives you insight into.
I was going to say inside information too, and insider, or a lot of insight into the other side.
And I did that for 7 or 8 years, and I thought, my heart's really more on the plaintiff side than on the defense side. So then I just went out and hung a shingle. And while I was practicing, I had a friend of mine who had a products case, and he had several of the plaintiffs, but he wanted the driver of a vehicle to be represented. And so I got that case. Now, he had contributory negligence on him and so forth and so on, but it was an interesting case. It was a fuel tank inside the pickup truck. There was a crash. The truck burst into flames. My client was the only one that survived. And so that's what got me into automotive products cases. That was 20 years ago.
I was about to ask when that was. So just after the turn of the millennium?
Yes. Well, actually, no, it was more than that. It was
in the 90s?
Yeah, it was in the 90s. So I guess almost 30 years ago. So
time does fly, right?
Yeah, it does.
So what were the early days? And I got that that's the kind of the one that started you off, but what were the early days of the practice that you have now, where it is, what you are now? What were those early days like?
It was when I first went out on my own, the internet was just kind of taking off. Yeah, taking off. And I had a friend of mine who had he was trying to promote websites and kind of do that kind of thing. And so I did a website, and from where it was then to where it is now, it's
right.
Oh my
different
gosh.
ball game. It's not even, actually, I wouldn't even call it, it's not the same sport. It's not the same sport. It's completely different. The landscape is different. SEO technically is only one portion of what actually gets you to rank on Google's website.
Right. Yeah. Back then, it was, first of all, no one really even had a website. So
exactly. So if you even had one, they would find you pretty much.
Right, that's right. Yeah. That's right. So, but anyway, it was that experience, learning about marketing, that's been a huge experience for me, because the marketing world has changed. There's so much stuff out there. So, but my practice, what it was like then, I got what I could get. The problem is that products cases can be quite expensive, and so you have to fund those expenses.
They're expensive on the firm. A lot of people don't understand how much money goes into the investigations and all the other things. I mean, that's just one piece of it. There's all the other research. I mean, I get it. You end up spending quite a bit. I mean, sometimes I know some firms have gone into spending 7 figures on a case that they knew was going to win them, obviously a lot more, but they had to shell out the money to get there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so, early on it was investing this money and hoping that you're going to get it back. And fortunately, I was fortunate that I was able to pursue that end or that type of litigation and be able to make it work. So.
Well, I wouldn't say exactly fortunate, because you just brought up a key word there. That means that you had to be in court, sir. And that means that you, if you're a litigator, then you must not be too bad at convincing either the judge or the jury or whomever it is that you're trying to convince of your case. So.
Well, like all trial lawyers, they will tell you, I've won some that I should have lost, and I've lost some that I should have won. So.
But that goes with, I mean, that's, I put that to any sport. How many times have you watched a game and you knew that the winner was not the way it should have been? And then you have both sides, someone who should have won, it didn't, and someone that shouldn't have lost or should have lost and didn't. Right. So,
right. That's right.
I mean, it just happens. That happens, in my opinion, with the numbers, but the way that I wanted to come back to something just real quick, because the way that you described going from the insurance into the personal injury, or going from, sorry, not the insurance, but from the mechanical engineering to being a lawyer, it's very similar for a salesman if they've been selling a product their whole life, and then all of a sudden they have to sell a service, because similarly, it's that difference between a tangible and an intangible, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Right.
I can't really prove to you that everything I'm selling to you is going to work. You really have to take it on faith. And that's what a lawyer has to convince anybody who's hiring him, that, hey, all I have to show you is the experience that I have done this correctly in the past and typically win. Not everyone, right?
Right.
And that's really the same thing a salesman has, by the way, when we're selling a service. particularly like marketing. I tell people, I'm like, the first time that somebody gives you a guarantee in marketing, you need to run the other way, because there is no guarantees in this. That's like the number one red flag to me when somebody says we guarantee result. Ooh, sorry. What was your biggest milestone, do you think? And this could be the biggest turning point as well, so it might be one and the same. But what do you think was the biggest milestone for you?
I guess the biggest milestone. I had a case against Mitsubishi up in South Carolina.
This already sounds interesting. I grew up in South Carolina.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it
Lexington, and Columbia, West Columbia, that whole area.
Oh, nice. This was up in Greenville, South Carolina, Spartanburg, Greenville area.
Know the area.
And it was against Mitsubishi, and it was a rollover of a Mitsubishi Montero Sport.
Right.
And my client was a soccer player for Furman University, but he was actually very good. He had been on all the national teams from age 13 to, and I think he was on what they call the U21 team or something like that. So, but he played for Furman College as well. And so he was on his way. He had probably gone to the European League and so forth and so on, but he was in this wreck. He damn near lost his leg.
Oof.
Saved his leg. But anyway, he had big injuries, and I remember
life-altering injuries. Let's just put it that way.
And up until that time, I'd settled most of my products cases. But Mitsubishi was like, "We're not paying you a dime." They wouldn't offer a dime. They said, "We don't owe it," and and I said, "Okay, well." So we went to trial, and we ended up with an $8 million verdict. So that
looks like you did owe.
Newsflash, they did owe us.
Yeah, exactly. I bet you would have. I'm sure my first words would have been, politely, "I think you do owe. It looks like the verdict was in our favor, so we'll be looking for that check." Congratulations.
So,
what year was that?
That was 2008, 2007, 2008. So that kind of changed my perspective. I'm
assuming that gave you a nice chunk of capital too to take the business further and more where you wanted it.
It did. So that was helpful, and it was a major milestone in
not just a milestone, but it really, I see how, that gave you not only a ton of experience, not only a big win, but then a lot of capital to literally, like we talked about, take the company to a different level now.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think what would you say was the biggest pitfall, challenge, mistake, whatever you want to call it, that you feel like you learned the most from and gave you the most traction on the other side?
So,
good question, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a broad question. So,
it is, but it gives you the opportunity. If you want to name a couple, what I'm looking for is really something that, at first it hit you and it all kind of sucked, but in reality, it turned out to be a catalyst to an even better moment, or learning something from it that gave you a lot of knowledge, if you will.
I think my biggest pitfalls is twofold. Number one is not understanding marketing and wasting a lot of money on just really bad marketing ideas.
Right.
And that's probably number one. The number two thing is, as a plaintiff's attorney, your revenue fluctuates. And
right.
You sometimes you get it in big chunks. And so you need to learn how to budget.
How to make that money stretch, right?
There you go.
And I can imagine when you got that $8 million, part of it went to this, and part of it, this take the company for 10 years. Let's just
right. And so I
get it.
But budgeting as a plaintiff's attorney, budgeting is extremely important. Keeping your overhead low is even more important. You know,
Right.
you get, like you say, you get a big lick, and then next thing you know, oh, we need new computers, and we need this, and we need that. No,
Not really. No, you did
yeah,
all that
no,
with you did that big case with all that equipment that you have right there. So
right, right. So
yeah,
no, you really don't need that. So
learn to live
uh,
within your means, if you
there you,
will.
there you go, there you go.
Yeah, I
So,
like it.
but the marketing, you know, you get calls every single day about,
You guys get them a ton, man. I
uh,
know. I mean, we
oh,
don't even call we just so you know, as a company, I came on board almost 4 years ago in January for Gladiator, and we after 2 weeks with Adam, who's the CEO, I was like, dude, we're not going to get anywhere cold calling these folks. We need to
right,
find ways to be different and get their attention with what we do, so that they're like, hey, I want to do what you do. And that to me speaks more of who you are as a company as well. You know, I can't stand, just so you know, as a salesman, and I'm sure you will get this as an attorney, uh, but I can't stand selling a product that I wouldn't buy myself or don't believe that it'll work exactly how I describe it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So when I'm selling SEO, I feel like if the company isn't using that same tactic to have them ranking, right? That's a big clue to me when you talk to an SEO company. You're like, why aren't you ranking well? Well, we don't SEO our own site. Really? Sorry.
well, I don't know if you know this, but I was a client of Gladiator
No,
Marketing.
get out of here. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, for years, and
I hope you liked it with us.
I was going to say I loved them. The only reason we moved is because
Wasn't there an exclusivity thing?
we had an exclusivity thing, and what happened was we merged
Yes.
with another firm. And
Yep.
when we merged, we couldn't use, because Adam had conflicts in these other cities that our firm was at.
I
And
didn't know that I was talking to you. I did not. I looked up and I even saw Texas, and I was going to mention, one of our biggest clients happens to be in Houston. Of course, you know that. Yeah. One thing I'll say, since you said it, I will at least, it tells everybody we take our exclusivity very seriously, because you can only get one person to the top. You can only do
right,
that job for one firm in an area. I actually have a call later today where someone's trying to get me to give them exclusivity on a national level, and I'm like, do you have any idea how much money you would have to pay me? Number one, for me to just turn off the whole country. Crazy.
right. And the funny thing is, that was one of the mistakes, is going through companies prior to Adam, going through companies, spending tons of money and not getting any results, and
Right.
having your website hacked into, and it turns
Right.
into
Security issues.
oh my God, it was terrible. And as a plug for Gladiator
Oh,
and
well,
Adam,
thank you.
I will say this: I can think off the top of my head 2 $5 million cases off my website from Adam. So
Yeah, well, there's no way in hell you spent $5 million with us. So
granted. So
that's
yeah.
awesome, man. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I know that just on a side note, and I know it's all on the podcast, but just on a side note, we are always looking for a way to have that relationship back. Trust me, we didn't like it when we lost it, and if it ever turns around that we can take it again, we will always be there. We loved you. So
Well,
I
in fact,
never got to meet you, but all I ever heard was, I think you worked with Nicole.
I
As
don't
far as
remember. Yeah.
I believe it was, yeah. And
Right.
everything I ever heard was just nice. That's what I mean. Let me just say, when the clients, we look at that good fit thing, which also a lot of attorneys talk about too, like knowing when to say no to a case, right?
Right.
And we've kind of learned that same thing as marketers. Like, there's times when you're like, look, man, this isn't going to be a good fit. I think you should go talk to these folks over here, where you can yell at them for the next 3 years. So, but you were a pleasure. So, well, hey, who were some, talking about your area there? Who would you call, if you only want to name one, that's fine, or if you have a couple, but who would you call a mentor, and what would you say is their best piece of advice?
I had the luxury, I guess you would call it, of working with 2 of the finest trial lawyers
I bet you learned a lot from them.
in Dallas. And the first person that I worked with was gentleman who just recently passed away by the name of Jim Cowles, and
My condolences.
that was when I was doing insurance defense work, and Jim Cowles was not afraid to try any case, and he got hit big, but he also got some zero verdicts, and so, and that's on the defense side, that's what you're looking for. But he was not afraid
To fight,
to
period.
try any case, and that
Yeah.
tenacity, that lack of fear, he I learned a lot from him. And then I had the pleasure of working with, on the plaintiff side, I had the pleasure of working with Frank Branson, who
Local
who
as well, I'm assuming they're in Dallas.
local plaintiff's lawyer, but he had, he's known nationwide. He's top-notch plaintiff's lawyer, and I learned a ton from him. Just the way to prepare a plaintiff's case, and to and again, he has no fear of going to trial either. So uh, so
I got a question for you, because everybody has a different take on this, but what would you say is the most, because I've heard everything from like 60 to 90 on this question. What percentage of winning a case do you attribute to preparation, a litigation?
so I think there are two elements of winning a case. One, likability of your client,
Right.
and two, preparation. So where do I put preparation percentage wise? It's not 90%, but it's probably 70%.
At least, right. I
But
mean, obviously, there's always a percentage that comes down to how you perform, number one, under pressure, and number two, on the spot, and that final performance, because but the thing that I continue to hear is, if you are not so prepared and so overly prepared to the point where you're ready for any particular thing that comes your way.
right.
That's the real key, is that you have an answer for anything thrown at you. And that can only be done through preparation and practice and preparation. At least that's the way I see it that way. And that's what I've heard from most great litigators.
And the preparation is not just preparation for trial, but the preparation starts from the day you get the case,
Right.
and getting all the records, and taking the proper depositions, and basically not leaving any stone unturned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. When I say preparation, that is encompassing of all the research and all the note taking that you did up until that. So just let me be very clear on that part. So to me, you can't have the preparation without everything. I mean, and I don't mean to sound rude at all. I'm just saying, like, that's part of it. I completely concur. So tell me this, Greg, what's one of your, and it can be something that you find most important, or just something that's a typical day, but what's a daily ritual that you feel like you need for a successful day?
Well, there's two things. I like to walk in the morning. And right now in the fall, the weather's cooling down, and so that's actually really, really nice. And so I walk
Right.
about 3 miles a day. Not a lot, but I just like to
Gets
walk.
the blood flowing.
Gets the blood flowing, clears my head. And especially in the fall, it's in the spring, it's just a beautiful time to do that.
Oh yeah.
And then I do a little journaling, just kind of,
Okay.
when I get back from walking, I just kind of write a page of just thoughts in my head, and no structure to it or anything of that nature, just writing stuff down. And so
Deep thoughts with Greg. Do you remember that?
I do. On Saturday Night Live.
Was it John Handy? I think was the day. Deep Thoughts with John Handy. Yeah, I used to love those. But you seem to be close to my age, so I'm 50, born in 72. So I figured you might catch the reference there.
Well, I appreciate you saying that I'm close to your age. I'm actually 63. So.
Get the hell out! Well, you look damn good for your age, sir. I would not have guessed that you were. I might have thought that you might have been in your 50s, but I definitely would not have guessed that you were in your 60s. So keep it up.
Well, I appreciate that.
The walking helps, and I also believe that laughing helps keep us young. So, and I don't see you hesitating to belt out a nice laughter. So keep that up too. What's something that you would say most people kind of, and this can be strange or quirky, or it could just be a hobby, but something that you would say most people don't know about Greg.
So when I was young, and what I want, what I wanted to, what I wanted to be was a short order cook.
Really?
Yes, I wanted to, make have the flat top grill,
eggs,
bacon. Yes, the
the whole show. I get it.
The club sandwiches. Yeah, I wanted. That's what I wanted to do, and obviously I didn't go that route.
Right.
Nor did I spend 7 years in college to be a short order cook, but but I do love cooking, and I watch all the cooking shows.
do you like Iron Chef and all the competitive? So I imagine then cooking is still a huge passion for you today. Do they look forward to it when they know that Greg's cooking for the night?
Well, they do, and my wife is a great cook as well, and but I like on Sundays I like to cook family dinners and have people over, and that kind of thing. I like to try different things.
Right, get creative.
Get creative and that kind of thing. So
I like.
So that's something that a lot of people don't know about me, because even though I look like I eat a lot, I also like to cook. So
there's a reason. There's a reason that as a cook. So in my family, I was the original cook. My wife and I have been together now for almost 16 years, married for over 12. And when we first had kids and started building a family, and I already had kids. She was a stepmother. So I told her, I was like, look, if you really want to family up with me, you're going to have to learn to cook. And I don't mean hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, right?
Right.
So she has, what's funny is I taught her all these recipes and taught her how to cook. And now she does it all. But she comes back and she's like, we really miss your cook. Like, because I taught her all these great recipes, but she's like, we still like it when you do it. So they force me back in the kitchen occasionally to have dad cook, But He has become. I now enjoy it because I go downstairs, around 5 o'clock, and I'm like, what's for dinner tonight? And as long as it's not leftovers, which does happen at least twice a week. I mean, she has to have 9 off. I get it, and we have all this food, we have to eat it. But when it's not leftovers, I'm always surprised. So I get it.
Well, cooking is something that definitely can be learned. So,
it is.
I mean,
it is a learned thing.
Yes.
I do believe that. My son had the passion, has the same passion. I had a cookbook at 12 that I started writing and creating recipes, and I've always loved cooking. And I actually was a short order cook for a time.
Oh, nice.
I went into the restaurant. It was the way I got into serving. So for the first couple of years, I was cooking, and then I was like, not to be rude to the cooks, and I loved them back there, and that's where all the chiefing was going on, if you know what I mean. It was a different situation in the back house, but I was like, there's 5 times more money. That's all there is to it. Like if I go out there and serve or bartend, and it's also, you can do even better when you have a personality, which you can imagine that I don't have a slob personality, so my tips would always be some of the highest in the house. So
nice.
I was much happier out there making them buy more drinks and desserts,
Yeah, there you go. Nice. I like it. You mentioned having a cookbook at 12. I think I was 13 or 14. There was a long time ago, there was this Australian chef that had a TV show, and it was one of the first cooking TV shows that I can remember. It was called The Galloping Gourmet. And he was an Australian chef, and he would just get tanked while he was cooking and constantly drinking wine. A little bit of wine for this, a little bit more for me, that kind of thing. So I got his cookbook and was cooking recipes out of his cookbook when I was 13 or 14. So the passion goes hysterical. Back a long way.
Who was it? Isn't it also Julia Childs? Wasn't that her name that did she would kind of get lit when she was in that? Am I right with that?
Yes.
Isn't that her name? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And then there was, the first cook, you're going to love this. This gives you more of my age too. The first cook that I was introduced to was the Swedish cook on the Muppets. That was the first television. That was my first television cook. And I was like, now, as I got older, I'm like, now I understood why he was so funny to the adults. Right. But at the time, it was just funny to watch him do his thing. But that's kind of funny. What would you say the craziest thing that you've ever done that you're okay with sharing? Obviously, the craziest thing you've ever done.
Wow. I don't know. I don't do a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, bungee jumping, I guess. But
That's crazy,
is
man.
that really crazy?
That is crazy. How old were you when you did it? That's the better question.
I was probably in my 30s.
Yeah.
So,
See, I won't do that now. I think
yeah.
about my back, and I'm like, I don't.
Right.
It's not about being crazy. It's about, am I going to withstand the whiplash of the jump?
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, just a little bit, and I think all trial lawyers are a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. Bit. Yeah, because
especially the litigators,
right?
Especially the adrenaline starts pumping the moment you got to stop talking.
Right.
So
that's right. So, but I'm not crazy. I mean, I don't do death-defying stuff, and I didn't. Bungee jumping is not really death-defying in my mind. I mean, obviously,
no, but it can go wrong.
It can go wrong. Yes,
it can go wrong. It can. So, did you grow up there in Dallas?
I did. Well, in the suburb of Dallas, Irving.
Irving. What was that? Yeah. What was that like growing up? And that would have been, if you're so we're talking like late or early mid 50s, right? Mid 50s or late 50s.
I was born in 1959.
Yeah, late 50s. There we go.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up there in the 60s?
So Kennedy was shot in 63.
Right. So you were 4.
And wow. And so I don't necessarily remember it, but I remember all the kids talking about it.
I was going to say, you remember all the chaos and backlash from it, especially since it happened in your state.
Right. Well, and in the city. And in fact, my dad had an office in downtown Dallas.
Wow.
And the shooting occurred just 2 blocks from his office. So, you grow up with that and you hear a bunch of talk and stories.
I never thought about that. You're like the only person. It's the first time, and I love learning something new every day. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I never thought about what was it like for someone growing up in Dallas after the president was killed there.
Yeah.
Wow. And how did that? Honestly, how did that affect you growing up? Did you feel almost like you were in an unpatriotic city at times, like you were pushed to that thought, like almost feeling it about your own city, but knowing, I know this is a great city. I see all these great people, and I know all these, they're doing all these great things. So I know it's not all this crap I'm hearing.
I was probably too young to really take it all in, to really digest it all. It's funny because Dallas was a very conservative, still is a fairly conservative city, but but my dad did criminal defense. Late 60s, there was a big push to change criminal law, provide. Miranda came out close to then, the Miranda warnings and all of that. And so, and my dad was kind of on the forefront of that. My mom was on the forefront of that. She would go to protests and rallies and things of that nature. So I kind of grew up with a little bit different perspective that, and actually things were changing for the better.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to hear it's hard to hear the rumors on one side, but then you're living life in a city that is ultimately moving and forging ahead. And for the most part, there's bad in every city. You take any city in America and you can find bad in it. I love Atlanta, but there's some really bad parts of Atlanta. And that's where I grew up was, or I should say where I became an adult from 16 to around 28. So, but yeah, I can imagine that it's not easy when you're feeling one thing that you're living, and then you're hearing these whispers and rumors of, another, simply because one event. And it's that old adage, right? It just takes one bad apple.
Yeah. And, it does. And my dad, did a lot of criminal defense, and he would come home with stories about the Dallas DA's office, district attorney's office. And, there was a famous movie called Thin Blue Line about how
I know the movie.
Yeah, how the Dallas district attorney's office would basically cheat and not provide all the evidence and so forth. And they, uh, probably convicted some people that were innocent. And so I would hear these stories. And so
from the inside, though, you would hear
from
them
the
from Dad.
from the inside. And so, you understand that you learn that even some of our institutions that should be free from deceit and corruption and bad things, they aren't. So
nothing is.
Right.
I always point people back to the yin and the yang because I think it is the best representation of what we are, because I look at it like this. If you take that center point of the yin and yang and you just draw and you have 360 lines, right? Somebody is always on one of those lines, and it doesn't matter where that line is. That means you always have a little bit of something and a lot of something else. And sometimes you're right on a line where you have even. You're just as shitty as you are not. So we run the gamut as humans. And if we're humans, and that's the truth, which I believe it is, then the institutions that we create, whether they're political, governmental, whether they're religious, right? They're all going to be tainted by the human hand. And there's nothing you can do about that.
That's,
there's
point well taken.
All you can really do is try to be, I have come to the point where I feel like if you continue to do the right thing and live what you believe is righteous, which is funny. Here's a thing I always point out. The guy that you call a hero is a villain to the other side. He's not just a bad guy. He is the number one villain. If you're calling him hero, someone else is calling him villain, and vice versa. If you're calling that guy villain, someone else is calling him hero.
True. That's absolutely true.
So yeah. I'm ready to throw all that shit away. That was the way I was living back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'll just throw that out there. I golfed with everybody. I didn't care what color. I didn't care what religion. I didn't care what politics. You want to try to beat me in golf? Let's go, man. Because I'm about out there, right? So.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yes, absolutely.
It's we could go into it, and I've said this before, but if you take any two Americans, let's just look at Americans. I think that almost every American probably has more than 70% in common with each other. So all of a sudden, it's because of these few little things that I think you're a horrible person to the core. When you share 70% of the same beliefs.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, I agree.
What are some of the things that you respect most of the colleagues in your area? I know we talked about your mentors, but what do you think is some of the colleagues? What are some of the colleagues that you respect most? Is what I meant. And the things in your industry, let's just talk about the PI industry.
I know personal injury lawyers sometimes get a bad rap because
they do
for being
just
greedy.
Like salesmen. We're car salesmen, every one of us.
Right.
And all you guys are bus chasers or ambulance chasers. Sorry, I got the wrong vehicle.
Well, a lot of them are on the back of buses. They're advertising on the back of buses, but no. And having, I was president of the Dallas Trial Lawyers Association, so nice. I can't. All the people that I know in Dallas and in Fort Worth, all the personal injury attorneys that I know, they all are interested in giving back. And some of them make a lot of money, some of them make good money, some of them make not so good money, but they're all interested in trying in the community and trying to give back. And that to me is kind of heartwarming that I'm in a community, sub-community that is trying to help the broader community. So
I've seen, just on a side note, I have seen, and obviously I know you realize I talk to only attorneys, right? And mostly we represent personal injury simply because they have the most competitive landscape within the marketing arena. But I will say, what, being that I've been working with attorneys now since 2007, that's cuckoo. That's going to be 12 dings too. I don't know if you can read the sign up there, but it's very clear. So this house runs on love, laughter, and inappropriate humor.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
And that's why I have it running over the cuckoo, literally. So, but no, back to, I have seen with my own eyes now, what is that, admitting to 16 years working with attorneys, that, or 15 years, it seems very clear that the vast majority of them actually care. And the bad rap that they get, it's back to what we already tackled. One bad apple can change the view of everybody. Right. And there are some bad apples in the PI game, and most people know who those are, and you can tell the difference many times from just having a simple 15-minute conversation, which the beautiful thing with getting a personal injury attorney is that they don't charge you for that consultation.
It's free.
You can literally interview 15 of them and know that I didn't pay a dime to one of those guys, and I'm only going to pick one. And I'm not saying that everybody should go out and take advantage of it, but I'm saying if it takes 15 interviews to find the one that you feel like is going to care about you, your family, your needs, your money, and your life,
right,
as Google puts it, right, then the reality is do it and find the right one, because I'm seeing, like you, that the vast majority, and if I had to put a percentage, I would say more than 80% of the attorneys I talk to are very good people. And whether they're making a lot of money or not, most of them are trying to be a part of their specific community throughout the whole. And they truly want to help their clients, whoever their clients may be, whatever practice area they have focused on, they truly want to help. And I mean, that's all, I don't think you can ask for much more.
I will tell you this, because I've done both sides. As a defense lawyer, man, when you learned something or had information or had a technique,
it's like a golden ticket.
You kept it close to your chest, right? I mean, you didn't let it out.
No.
As a plaintiff's attorney, we share everything.
Two different competitive landscapes.
It's just amazing how different it is. So
yes, I will absolutely agree. There's no assistant DAs sharing with other assistant DAs on how to win the case.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Which almost benefits the other side, quite frankly, because that on that side, they're all like, this is I'm dealing with it right now in a personal life issue with my son. And this is, we're dealing with a DA that in a nutshell simply knows she can win. So she's not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I know you know exactly what you don't even have to know the case. She simply knows that she has winning material. Therefore, she is unwilling to look at all the other factors of the life involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sad thing is that their careers
depend
are
on it,
dictated by win-loss records.
Yep, that's why they look at it like that, because that's all that effing matters to them is how many did I win and how many did I lose, because that's all my supervisor is going to look at and determine whether I move up as a DA.
Right. Not whether you're a good person, not whether you're trying to do the right thing. It's winning or losing, and that's it. And that's a sad commentary.
It's no different than the quota of a traffic officer.
True.
Right. Like I don't care if they're right or wrong. You need to bring me 30 tickets every single month. I need one a day or whatever, but they have quotas, and that hasn't stopped that I'm aware of, which is why you always know at the beginning of the month, you're like, you slow her down.
Slow down. That's right. You mentioned something. What was it? About interviewing different lawyers. And I'm finding that more and more people now are interviewing multiple lawyers, which I think personally is a fantastic idea.
Because it lets them see just who is, as I said earlier, it shouldn't take you 15, 20 minutes to see if they're true to their colors or not.
Right. We call it kind of in the industry, we call it a beauty contest, because, I'm friends with all the plaintiffs' attorneys in town. And so I know who they're interviewing and so forth and so on. And you know what? I encourage it, because even though we may be on the same level talent wise, our personalities are different.
Yeah, not everybody's going to match with you, and not everybody's going to match with Tom or David or
that's right.
Julie. Everybody's. Yeah, I agree.
So
the thing is, what's funny is, what might be a bad client for you ends up being a great client for someone else because the personalities fit.
That's right. This is exactly right. So,
I have learned that, and that goes with that old adage: one man's junk, right, is another man's treasure. So,
there you go.
What's your favorite podcast? Don't say anything else but this one, man. I'm teasing. What's your favorite podcast? Seriously.
You know what? I'm a big crime junkie.
Gotcha.
I love Crime Junkie podcast.
Oh, is that the name of it? Crime Junkie?
Crime Junkie podcast. is the
Crime
name.
Junkie. I'm
Yes.
gonna have to check that. Hold on, man.
Yes.
Now you said something I got to write down. That one just sounds like it might deliver things in a little bit more modern way than others. I mean, I just right off the bat, I like the name of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crime Junkie. I hope they're shooting up a lot of crime in this podcast. I'm just teasing. Conferences. I mean, there's so many with you guys. So I know PILMA may be the one, but what is your favorite conference each year?
There are so many conferences.
I know I think PI literally has the most as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Personal injury, for those of you who are not just, I should probably, sorry, I'm with an industry guy, so I know I can slip with the acronyms, but personal injury. So what's your, there's 100 of them at least.
So, I'm a member of several associations, American Association for Justice, AAJ, used to be the American Trial Lawyers Association. Now it's AAJ. They have, biannual big conventions. Those are always fun to go to. And they're always in decent places. I'm a member of a group called the Attorney Information Exchange Group, which is mainly, but not all, but mainly product liability plaintiffs lawyers who use it as a way to share information. They have biannual, and those are really informative, especially for what I do. Those are very informative.
So they're always bringing the newest developments, if you will, or changes within the industry, particularly litigation.
Right. Then there's the Mass Torts Made Perfect that's out in Vegas, and
always in Vegas.
Always in Vegas. And
I bet that's a favorite.
That's just pure fun. I don't get a lot done.
Why else would you go? They're smart. They're like, we're just going to hold this in Vegas every year. Who gives a shit what we're talking about? Come to Vegas.
Right. Now, I've not been to PILMA or some of those others, but I'd probably like to go to one of those. I probably should schedule to do that. So,
it lots of times it's a standard answer from personal injury guys. So I'm glad you brought a few others to the table. Last one. What would be your number one tool? And it could be software, and it very well may be software. But what would be your number one tool and or software that you really can't live without throughout the day?
So my number one tool is this thing called Transcript Pad. It goes with Trial Pad.
Okay.
But the Transcript Pad, you can load up all your depositions in this Transcript Pad and then make notes, highlights. I mean,
and I'm assuming they probably have an app so you can literally access this on your phone too.
Yes.
Yep.
As long as it's an Apple product. It's an Apple product. So
that's okay. You can push the devil.
I have to have two computers now. I have to have an Apple computer and a Microsoft computer.
Microsoft, yeah. Because the country runs on Microsoft, but the rest of the world is now running on Apple. I think eventually there may be a change if Apple, because I'm just telling you, but by them making their own silicone now, I'm sure you've heard about their own chip, right? So between that and the fact that they now are making just a little, Apple in a box, I think we're going to see more and more institutions from, school, government, associations, all that. I think they're going to start. I've already known a few that have, so, it's the beginning, but I think for probably the next 10, 15 years, you're still going to, like you're going to have to keep both or have the way to access both. For me, I'm on Apple, but I literally use Microsoft products all day by using Office 365.
Oh, yeah.
Log in, like even though I don't know if you've heard of that, but that if it's just because of the Microsoft products, but I imagine you have some things that the courts are using that are specific to Microsoft. So that's where the trouble lies in paradise, if you will, for an attorney, where you have to have. I mean, almost every attorney I've known for the last 20 years has had to have Microsoft no matter what. They might have an iPhone, they might have a Mac, but they had to have Microsoft.
Right.
Just for the court system.
Right. Huh. I didn't think about because now everything, like you say, is
Web-based.
web-based
Yep.
subscription service kind of thing. And you don't have to have,
if you already have Office, you can do 365 and just log into Outlook. You can log into you can literally build Word, presentation, all that without actually having to download the software.
oh, perfect.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
Check it out. And it's not, they're not charging, when you look at expenses, right? And risk versus reward and all that kind of thing. I think you'll find, I know we use it and it makes it quite easy because with that 365, you get shared folder and shared disk space where people can have files on there that you can limit the permissions. So like
Yes.
3 people can have a file on there that is a live file and any of them 3 can change it, but nobody else in the company can see it.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah,
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to check that out. I was telling you about a product and you sold me on a product. So
hey, I wasn't even trying to, man. I'm an Apple guy too. So I try to find as many ways that I can stay on Apple as possible.
Yeah.
I prefer it. Not necessarily better. I just prefer it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I used to try to use Parallels and run my Microsoft on my Apple computer.
Yep,
I
pain in the ass.
I hated that. So
it never runs. I mean, even though it is technically the same hardware and it doesn't run the same because it's not, the way that Apple makes it is it's the only thing I like that's proprietary, because everything else, when they say proprietary, makes me run to the hills.
Right.
But, the fact is, Mac OS will only run, and I think there's ways around it, by the way, just between you and me and the audience. I've talked to a lot of techies who say you can, ultimately there's ways around it where you can put Mac OS on other computers, but that's just so much harder. But everybody knows you can put any OS on a Mac. Right. And run it, but it just doesn't ever run the same. Exactly. And by the way, it's not just, it doesn't run the same for any of them that I've seen, because I've seen people run Linux on their Macs. People run Chrome on their Macs. None of them run the same as the Mac OS does on the Mac. So what are you going to do? I do like Chrome, by the way. I don't know if you've used Chrome, but Chrome is, and I'll end it here, and I'm not trying to sell them, but my kids use them. And one of the reasons that I like them is they kind of took all the things that were great from Mac and all the things that were great from Micro and smashed them. And kind of a common sense, what feels like, I think if you try it, you might agree, just from talking to you, but it's actually pretty decent approach to operating system. And they're like $200 a Chromebook. So they're not expensive either.
Okay.
But I will tell you this, they run differently. Chromebook goes to, they do 15 gig of hard drive, and then everything else is cloud.
Okay.
So you can have unlimited cloud, right? But you only get 15 gig on your device. Right. So there is something to be said about if you're using Chrome. Now, my kids don't matter. Let me repeat that. What my kids are searching and doing do not matter to me that the government knows. Once they get to a little bit older age, I will probably pull them over to some other equipment, either Microsoft or Mac, depending on what is the best at the time.
Right.
But I always keep that in mind, that everything they're doing is going into the cloud. So it is what it is. Yeah. I feel like unless you have something to hide, who the hell cares anymore? That's my
opinion. I got to tell you, I hate the cloud. We've got a case management system that's now in the cloud, and just to get information downloaded takes forever. So
your cloud, I'll tell you this, it's just like anything else. The cloud is as good as the software and the hardware that is backing it. Because other clouds, I mean, they're not, no two clouds are alike, and no two clouds are born equal. Let me just put it that way. You've got some that are really crappy, and even though they use that word, it doesn't mean that they're at this level.
Right.
So just do the same thing you're telling those people to do. Interview them and look, there's some, if you ever want to have a talk about it, we can have a side discussion on cloud services, because there's, they're not all created equal, and there's some that you would prefer to use because they'll give you your information as fast as pretty much anything else.
Oh, nice.
And that's
that's what I'm looking for. Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I had an awesome time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I literally was, I kid you not, I didn't even tell you this at the beginning, but I was like 3 seconds away because I was like, I don't think he's. I literally looked over my wife. I was like, I don't think he's going to show, and I didn't know that. I feel so bad because I did not know who you were. You totally. I mean, you got me like I was literally inside. Jaw drop. Oh, talking to Guajardo and Marks. I just didn't put it together because the website is not Guajardo. It's not the website that I'd looked at until you guys left. So I never I never even put it together. Plus, I never got to meet you personally, but I am happy I did now, and I had a great time, man. Thank you so much for coming by.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and this is the God's honest truth. I didn't realize this was a Gladiator podcast. Right. So
there it is.
When you got on, I realized it. So perfect.
Hey, man. You never know. Isn't that funny how circles end up colliding? Yes. It's just another proof that this world is extremely small when you open yourself up to it.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. So
I
enjoyed it. So thanks.
I did too, man. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed week and an even better weekend with the family, and do your thing.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.